Stop recording button. Double tap to activate.
Hello friends. Well, I am recording this video for WIP Wednesday. That's right, WIP is W-I-P in the crafting community. That stands for work in progress. So say hello in the comment section. Let me know where you're watching from. Say, hey, I'm from England and I'm crocheting a shawl. Yeah, or whatever it is that we do. If we craft together, let me know. If we do something else together, also let me know. That's totally okay. Everybody is welcome here, whether you knit or crochet, or maybe you sew or you quilt. Maybe we hang out together while you mop your floors, or while you sweep, or while you do your crunches, or you fold your socks, or go on a walk, or whatever. I'm just here to hang out with you, be a crafting buddy for a little bit. So I don't even know which craft to work on. I have got like start-itis right now. I've started so many things for a whole variety of reasons. I'm struggling to even focus on one I've got like 3 projects on the knitting needles, at least, maybe 4, I think 4, and then I found some more old ones, and then I got some crochet stuff going on. I got stuff everywhere right now, and I should be focused on wrapping stuff up, but I just keep starting stuff. Yeah, that's what you do when you have a crochet channel, I am finding out. So if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back and choosing to hang out with me and spending a little bit of your day with me. And thank you for your patience while I briefly introduce myself to anybody who might be new to my channel. Hi, my name's May. I love yarn, I love to knit and crochet. Those are my hobbies, and I also happen to be born visually impaired. I am completely colorblind. I am blind by light, so I tend to record later in the day when there's not, a lot of bright light. I do my best to describe things for anybody else who might be visually impaired, because I truly believe that knitting and crochet are for everybody. You can do it tactily. I knit and crochet by feel. So today I'm gonna knit with you while we chat. I got a little knitting project here on the needles. It's actually one of my little hybrid projects, right? So we got crochet on the bottom, and then we got knitting on the top. And it started out where I was looking at a pattern on the internet. It was called the Avignon tee, and it was a crochet tee. And I'll try to link it up for anybody who's new. It was like my first, crochet garment. And I thought that'd be perfect for me. I crochet scarves and hats and shawls, and I do my little hybrid things where I do skirts, right, and then I put crochet on the bottom, or I do my granny square skirt, that kind of a thing. And I was like, oh, I should learn how to crochet like a top. But you know me, if you watch my channel, I just am not good at following directions and working a pattern as is, right? This is a free pattern on the internet with a free YouTube tutorial, and then of course you can buy a PDF if you want. So I'm not giving away anybody's secrets when I discuss this pattern. But it's basically 4 rectangles. You do a rectangle for the front, a rectangle for the back, and then 2 rectangles for sleeves, right? And you sew them together. And I was like, that would be a perfect garment for me. It's very boxy, very loose. I did my chain. I used the exact same yarn that she is, the Knit Picks We Crochet Shine Sport. I do love this yarn a lot. And I did a size small. And even as a boxy tee, it was going to be way, way, way too big. So I had to rip it out, and even go with the X small, I could tell was going to be way too big on me. So you know what? I just scrapped that idea. But I did like the idea of working with 2 different rectangles, because I thought I need to practice joining pieces for garments. I don't like doing it. It's not fun for me. It's hard for me to do that by feel, but I just knew it was something I needed to practice. So I did work the front and the back separately on this piece, and then I did seam them together, right? You can see the seam on the inside. And so I'm working it, but I just couldn't leave it alone. I just couldn't. So I already had to add in like some little like an eyelet chain row with some half double crochets, and then of course I had to add knitting to it, right? I just did. I couldn't stand it. I just have to. My mind just kind of takes over things, and I'm like, ooh, what if I did this? Ooh, what if I did that, right? I mean, that creative process in my head just takes over, and I just struggle to follow a pattern. I'm like, what would it look like if I did this or that? So not only is this a work in progress, it is most definitely a design in progress. I don't even know for sure what this is, okay? I don't know how it's going to turn out. Like, initially, I was still thinking of making it a top, where I'd use the crochet section for the lower part of the top, and I could do that. I tried it on, and then where I put these half double crochets, and I could put like a little tie, and then the solid, I went ahead and attached it to the knitting needles. I do have a demo with that that should be out by the time you see this, or will be out on my channel shortly. And then we got some stockinette section for the bust. That's kind of what I was thinking. And then I don't know what I'll do. If I want to just do a flat neckline, that's easy, and then play around with some straps. I don't know yet if I'm going to knit the straps, or if I'm going to crochet the straps, or if I'm going to do both with the straps. Right? I could totally do both. I could knit them and then put crochet trim on them. I don't know. So that is kind of like this top is completely being created as we speak, this garment, okay? And then I was like, I could make it like a tunic style top, where this could be down like at the waist area, right? So we could make it longer, and then this could be that body piece, and then we could still do something like that for the top. So I don't know. I was initially thinking this would be like midriff area. Now I'm thinking this could be a longer style top. But it could still also be a skirt, right? I could put it down lower and use that for the lower part of a skirt, and then work my way up. So this little project that we got going on, we don't even know yet what it is. We don't know if it's ever actually even going to be an FO, right? In the crafting community, we call that an FO, a finished object. We don't know yet if this is going to be a finished object. We don't know what it's going to be. We don't know if it's going to be a tank top. We don't know if it's going to be more like a tunic length top. We don't know if it's going to be a skirt. So I'm definitely very much in a creative space with this. I'm definitely still in the process of design and creating. So, you know, stay tuned. Of course, you might never see this project again, because I might decide, hey, I wanted it to be this, and then that didn't work out, and then I end up frogging and ripping out the entire project. That can happen. Yes, it can. That happens in my world sometimes. I'm just telling you now, okay? So, yeah. That's going on. So let me know how you all are doing besides what you're working on. Let me know how you're doing. How was your weekend? Did you go anywhere? Are you having extreme weather? We've had a heat advisory here for the last several days, and it's definitely hot. That is why I am wearing some pretty, some smaller shorts, and why I'm wearing a crop top, because it's very warm here, and I'm definitely staying indoors, focused on staying hydrated, drinking some Crystal Light. I know it's not the best choice. I know it's got artificial, flavors in it. I know it's got the dyes that aren't good for me in it, but I do have some in the house, and I am going to finish what I purchased. I'm probably not going to buy any more again, but it's just been hot the last several summers. We do usually get very, very hot here in July and August. Mid-June's a little bit early for us to be having an extreme heat advisory, but we'll make it through. So let me know if you're dealing with that, if you're someplace where it's really warm. How are you staying cool? I hope that you're staying hydrated and staying healthy. When I was a teenager, I used to put vodka in my Crystal Light. I'm not doing that now. Nope, I'm not. I'm just trying to stay hydrated. That's the focus. It's not about adding a bunch of vodka to it anymore. But I can't lie, I used to. So, yeah. And let me know what you did. Did you go anywhere? Did you do anything exciting? I talked to my sister. She lives all the way across the country from me. I live on the West Coast. She lives on the East Coast. And she works very hard. She works full time. She works very hard. And so, she works way more hours than she gets paid for. Okay. And so, you know, she doesn't have a lot of extra time in her life.
Charging stopped battery level 78:11 p.m.
That's just one of my
Charging
devices.
started battery
Sorry
level
about that. If you
72%.
know that on my
System
channel,
UI.
I've got
Select
devices
emergency
that
pause only
talk
list.
all by themselves. So
33 meters until full.
that's
Swipe
my
15 fingers to unlock.
that's my old cell phone that I still use to do. I don't have cell service on it, but I do use it with Wi-Fi to do other things on. So it, for some reason, decided it wanted to be a part of the conversation, and it wanted to be included. So that's nice. So anyway, I visited with my sister on the phone for a couple of hours, and she is coming out here in less than 3 weeks. That is exciting because we don't get to see each other very often. So we're excited just to visit, just to chill, just to hang out. We're going to hang out with our parents, do like a little staycation, but I won't be staying here. I'll be at my parents' house in another town. So I don't know how much you'll see me. I am going to try to pre-record a few things, and then you might even see me from there. I might be able to do a few videos from there. I don't know. I certainly want to enjoy my family while I'm with them. That's, you know, important to me, to hang out with my mom and my dad and my sister, and for us to get, you know, family time together. And I also, you know, they know that I have a YouTube channel. But I really, you know, I want to respect their privacy. So my sister doesn't want to be on my YouTube channel. So, which is totally fine. I asked her, I was like, do you want to be on it or not? And she was like, nope. And so I totally respect that. And so I want to make sure that, you know, if I'm at home and I'm filming something, that it's, you know, not intruding on her time and not making her uncomfortable or anything like that. And I totally get that. I really struggled with whether or not I wanted to have a YouTube channel, right? Whether or not I wanted to put myself out here, because if you've been on the internet at all, you know, the world of the internet is not always a kind place, right? I mean, it's not. That's just the sad reality. I don't really do any other social media. I do have a Facebook page, but I'm barely on it. I'm not even on it once a day. Sometimes I go days without being on it. I'm not active really on it anymore. I just go on there to check a few things, you know. So, you know, I don't do the Instagram and the X and all that other stuff. So, you know, I understand why people wouldn't want to put themselves out on YouTube. It's scary. There's mean, angry, unhappy people in the world who just say unkind things, just, you know, out of their own hurt. So it totally, there's, you know, judgmental people. There's people that will criticize you for anything and everything on the internet, even though they don't have a single, you know, video under their profile. They've never made a video. They've never put themselves out there. They will still jump on everybody else's videos to say unkind things. So that's a sad reality. But you know what? There's also a lot of super nice, super kind people out there too on the internet. I watch a lot of other content creators, and I really try to be kind and say kind things and say nice things and say supportive things. Yeah. So, but I understand why she doesn't want to be on my channel, and I totally respect that. So I don't know how much, you know, how much we'll be hanging out, but hopefully I'll have a few things pre-recorded, and who knows, you know, when I get back home and how quickly I'll get back into things or not. I don't know. I got to start thinking and planning projects. You might see me here pretty soon having that little combo with you. We might have to discuss my projects. Yeah, what to bring, how much yarn do I need to bring, right? I mean, for real. So, anyway, that's on my mind. I got to start packing for that. Got to start preparing for that. Yeah, so I talked to her, and I watched the Belmont, the horse race on TV. I am into horse racing. If you're not, that's totally okay. I respect that. People are different. We all like different things, right? I don't watch basketball. It's not a game I follow. I've said it before. Sounds like squeaky shoes and whistles to me. So it's not my thing. So, you know, if horse racing is not your thing, I get it. I respect it. But I did watch it. I've been watching horse racing with my dad since I was like 2 or 3. He really enjoys it. So I did watch the Belma, and I was cheering for Sovereignty. He won the Kentucky Derby, and I just knew that horse had it in him. I knew he did. And then I'm not gonna lie, like if I'm not, I didn't bet, but if I had bet, I would have put money on Sovereignty. I really did want him to win. And that I was nervous for him. I'm not gonna lie. There was times in the race that I was like, no, move, right? He was like a third. You know, I think he slipped down to fourth. There wasn't even that many horses in the race this year. And I was like, oh my goodness, you know? I just knew that he had it in him to win. And then he did. He did at the end. That's what horse racing is all about, right? It's like short and yet, boom, it is so exciting. He pulled it out. He pulled ahead and he pulled off a win. And that's what I love about horse racing. It's like, you know, 3 hours of commentary for, you know, 90 seconds of, or 2 minutes or something, you know, 120 seconds of excitement and thrills, right? To see which horse is going to win. So big congratulations to Sovereignty, his whole team, Junior Alvarado, all the people that are involved, you know. It's a huge endeavor. And, you know, my honest opinion, excuse me, I have allergies, coughing a lot, congested. So I hope that they clear up at some point. But you know what? Some years I literally have allergies all summer long. Yeah, I hope not. I hope you're not listening to me all congested and stuffy, right, all summer long. But you might be. So, yeah, big congratulations to them. And my honest opinion is that I think Sovereignty could have won the Preakness too. I think we could have seen a Triple Crown winner this year, right? But I have so much respect for his owners and his trainers and his whole team who just said, you know what? We're not pushing our horse to do that. We want him to have 5 weeks off. We want him to have downtime, time to recoup, time to recover. And that's what you want to see as somebody who's not just into it, you know, for the thrill and the entertainment. Yes, it's thrills. Yes, it's entertainment. But the health and safety of the horses and the jockeys should be the #1 priority always. And so when they made that decision, you know, I was 100% behind it. I thought, good for them for saying we're not going to get greedy, right? Because some owners would have gotten super greedy, right? And just ran him anyway. So we want the, you know, we want the millions from the Preakness, and we want the chance to win the Triple Crown, you know, and who cares about the horse's health? But they didn't do that. They didn't. They made the right decision for their horse, and that's really commendable. So I know that there are some people who worry and say it's not safe, and you know the horses are pushed beyond their limits. And I talked about this before in a video. I talked about the Kentucky Derby, but you know, just seeing a decision like that, it really helps me to know that yes, this is a trainer and an owner that says, yeah, we will put the well-being of our horse above the millions, above having the potential to be a Triple Crown winner. So much respect to that. So that was my my Saturday. Ended up being a really packed day between horse racing and chatting with my sister about life, and you know, doing my projects and doing my videos, and making plans for things that I can do with y'all while we hang out. So yeah, and now I am just yeah. And so, but anyway, I know that not everybody gets horse racing, right? But I grew up in a rural area, and so I didn't grow up with horses. But a lot of my, kind of where I was going with that, my love of horses, is that a lot of the people that I grew up with had horses, and so I was around them from a really young age. I went to church. My mom took us to church when we were just babies and children. In fact, my mom took me to church the week that I was born. I think she says I was born on a Wednesday night, and I think she said she took me to church by that first Sunday, so I was less than a week old. And she put me in the crib to share a crib with another baby who was born exactly 3 months earlier than me. So she was my very first friend. She's 3 months older than me, and we were best friends growing up, off and on, and we're still Facebook friends. So that is one of the benefits. That is one of the few reasons why I stay on Facebook. Is to have contact with people like that and to see how they're doing. So her family grew up on a farm and had horses, and then our other friend from church who lived not far from her, a Native American family, they also had horses, and she was one of my other close friends from church, and her dad, they were Native American, and her father trained horses, and he trained them, with the old Native American ways and methods, and they had very well trained, very beautiful animals out there. So when I would go over to their houses, after church, to hang out or for a birthday or something like that, getting just to see the horses, even if I didn't get to ride them, just getting to see them for me was such a thrill. I developed a bond and a love of horses from, I think I was 3 years old the first time one of those families put me on a pony. I was 2 or 3. I was not that old. And the very first time that they put me on their ponies, and it was love. I was truly one of those kids that was like, yeah, this is my thing, right? I built that connection to that pony immediately. And it was sort of my love of horses and ponies grew from that moment on. And so even if we weren't always out riding their horses, for me, it was such a thrill just to go out and go to the pasture and go to the corral and pet the animals, right? Pet them and hang out with them. I was the kid that was just happy to hang out with horses, right? That's what made me happy. I loved seeing my friends too, of course. I loved going to their houses, and I loved, hanging out with them. But it was like, yeah, can we hang out with your horses? Can we just hang with your horses? Would that be cool? So, yes, I want to see you too, but can I just go out and pet your horses? That was my big thrill for me as a kid. And so I had horses out here. I know I've mentioned it before, but the property that I live on now is 5 acres. And so I went to college up in this area way back in 1998. I went to the community college at my parents' hometown, and then I transferred up here for my 4-year degree, went to college, finished my 4-year degree. But when I came up here, I had a boyfriend, and I was on full scholarship. So I was very, very focused on my academics and very happy in my relationship. And I had my first guide dog with me, Genevieve. And so that's really what I'd come here to do. I wasn't here to, I did plenty of partying and wild stuff, drinking and, experimenting with smoking weed, different stupid things that teenagers do, right? I did lots of that in high school. And so by the time I got to college, I was just, really focused on being a student. And so, but I met a friend within my first term of college there, one of the employees from the campus, was really admiring my German Shepherd, because he had German Shepherds, and he had out here on this very property, he had a dog that was half German Shepherd and half Coyote. So he, because he had a female German Shepherd before, and there are coyotes out here. I hear them often. They do come on the property, as evidence of coyote poop on the property. Okay, so we know they're here. They leave their tracks, they leave their poop, plus I hear them regularly. So he had a German Shepherd, and she bred with a coyote, and so he had one of the puppies left from her that was a little coyote German Shepherd mix. And she was a really neat little dog. I got to come out and meet her. She was really very cute, very petite, very, very smart, very different, very alike my German Shepherd, but also different. There was without a doubt a wild animal in her, for sure. But she was still very well trained, well behaved, very smart, but she definitely had some instincts of wild animals, for sure. Unique and really fun to get to know her as a dog lover, right? As somebody who worked with guide dogs, it was kind of cool to get to observe some of the less domesticated, long relatives of our dogs, right? If you're a dog lover, it's kind of interesting to observe coyotes and wolves and things, and so that was fun for me. But he lived out here, and we were friends, but that was it because I was happy in my relationship. So I moved away, went to graduate school, did my thing, right, in life, and then came back up here in 2012 for a job at the very same university that I graduated from. And so I was only here for a few months when I ran into him at the bank. He was taking his dad, who was like 90, to the bank, right? And so he was like, hi, you know, so we reconnected. And I was working at the university, but he always knew that I loved horses. And so he arranged, before the house was built here, I talk about how this house was built in 2015. This house was built 10 years ago. But before the house was here, when I was working up at the campus, he arranged to have some horses out here. He didn't buy the horses, but he's had horses before. We both have horse experience. We both love horses. And so he knew some people who had connections with horses, and he made arrangements to keep horses out here for me, because he truly knew, you know, that never left me as a child, when I used to love to go and hang out at my friends' houses. Just, you know, I mean, they were my friends, but I did love to just go and hang out with their horses. And so he knew that about me. And so he did make arrangements for me to just go and hang out with the horses by bringing the horses out here to the property, to the 5 acres, and being like, I'll get the horses and put them out here, and then you can come and hang out with them every day after work and on the weekends. And so that's what I did. So when I talk about my horses, I call them my horses, okay? So you'll hear me on my channel, and I'll talk about my horses, and I'll say my horses. But they weren't actually my horses. They were mine, and that I got to see them every day. I got to take care of them. I wanted the horse owner experience. And so I got to feed them, water them, groom them, bathe them, you know, train them. Some of these horses had little to no training. In fact, pretty much all except for one had little to no training. So got to be a part of their training process, you know. Feeding, all the things, you know, getting their coats on for the winter and putting their halters on, and, you know, getting them used to the halter and their bridle and the lead rope, and, you know, that whole experience of the training process of trailering them up, and, you know, working with that, teaching them how to do that. So I got to have the experience without you know, without fully owning them, which was really cool. The only sad part is that, you know, I didn't get to make all the full decisions on their life and their ownership and all of that. So I miss them. I miss them terribly. I really, really miss them so much, and I think about them, and I wonder about them, and I sincerely hope that they're all doing well. But basically what we did was kind of board and train somebody's horses, but for free. Like, we let them come out here and stay for free, and I got to have the experience without having to, you know, like, pay for a vet bill and that kind of stuff. So that worked out good, because this lady who worked with horses got the chance to have a place to leave hers, and plus we live in an area where there's wildfires. You hear me talk about that a lot on my channel. So we have wildfires here, and grass, you know, that grows, and then that's fire danger risk. So having the horses here was cool, because they, you know, they're like a little lawnmower, right? They're out there, and they'll eat the grass down to nothing. So that's definitely really handy to have when you live in an area where there's wildfires, right? So for us, that was great, because then nobody had to mow the property or anything like that. It was like, okay, you know, we'll just leave the horses out there. We got lawnmowers, and all we had to do basically was move the electric fences around, so we could move the horses to different areas, so they could graze off different areas, basically. so that worked out well for them, and I'm sure that I will talk about them more on my channel, right? I'm sure that you will hear me talk about my horses. We had a little pony out here named Trigger, who was like a little Shetland. He was like a little Shetland pony, but his name was Trigger because he was like a little Palomino, like Trigger the horse, but a mini and Shetland pony size. He had like the blonde hair, right, and like the white mane and tail and the little white forelock, and he was a pretty mischievous animal, pretty naughty little animal. And honestly, if you don't know, ponies are cute, but they tend to be a little bit naughty. Let's just say that. They're not the most behaved. Honestly, a lot of your bigger horses, your quarter horses, and your thoroughbreds, a lot of them are way better behaved than ponies. Most ponies are pretty mischievous. So, just say, not that they aren't cute. They're adorable. But, they can be pretty mischievous. So I had a little pony out here who was so cute. I used to take him for walks. I used to ride him too. I'm not too big to ride a Shetland pony, so I'd ride him some. But I take him for walks too. Like you'd see people, right? I used to have guide dogs, and I used to have a pet dog as a kid. But I would have just had a white cane, and I would put, I'd put a halter on him, and I'd put a lead rope on him, and I just take him for walks. So I just amuse myself. Oh, and I don't mean just around the property. I don't mean like just in the ring for training, right? Like it's you walk your pony on a lead rope to get them used to pressure and get them used to being well behaved. But I would actually take him off the property, right, and down the road away. I'd take him over to the neighbor's house. I'd walk him over to the neighbor's house with my cane and just wander about, walking my pony. So just amusing myself. So we had him out here, and we had a gorgeous paint out here named Nobby, who was a girl's show horse. He was my favorite one to have out here because he was the best behaved. He was a joy to ride. I loved riding him. He was just gorgeous, just absolutely gorgeous, and so well trained. And he was a beautiful paint, like a brown and white paint. And he was a just a dream to have. So he was a show horse. Who belonged to, she was a teenage girl when she got him, and that's the dream of a lot of teenage girls, right, to have their own beautiful paint show horse. But then she went to college, right, and so we had him out here for a while she was going to college and in the process of selling him, basically, because she needed the money. That's unfortunate, but that's a lot of people are in that dilemma, especially college girls. They might get their favorite show horse, and then to pay for their college, they have to sell their horse because they can't afford to keep up with the cost of having a horse. They need the money out of it, and they can't afford to keep up with the lifestyle, or they lose interest, or whatever. So he was out here though for a time. We kept him during that time, and then he was sold, and so I miss him terribly. I do. I wish he was still out here. But we're just not at a place where we can have horses out here right now. Who knows, maybe one day in the future, but we're certainly not at a place where we can do that now. But I used to go to work at the college, and then I'd come home, and I'd work out at the gym and eat dinner, and then come out and take care of my horses. I'd call up my horses and go take care of my horses, and I'd come out here on the weekends and spend all day with them, with my cage, just training them and grooming them and bathing them and training them, putting coats on them and putting stuff on and off of them just to get them used to it, right? Because that's part of the process of training horses is that, you know, you put a blanket on and you take a blanket off and you put a blanket on, and you make sure that they can handle you putting a blanket on when it's windy, because the wind will, you know, can cause the blanket to ruffle. Horses are funny, man. They'll spook over just the littlest things. I've seen horses rear up over plastic bags, like literally a plastic bag on the floor or on the ground, you know, and it blows in the wind and it makes the plastic bag noise. And I've, you know, literally seen horses rear up and freak out over something that simple. So if you've been around horses, you've seen it, right? You've seen them freak out over tunnels or tree branches or, you know, all kinds of bizarre little things. You just don't know what's going to trigger them. You don't know what's going to set them off, especially if, you know, depending on their level of training. So, yeah, so I had the opportunity to do a lot of that kind of work with them, with sort of the desensitizing them to things and getting them used to things. But Nobby, having been a show horse, he was much more adjusted to all that stuff compared to the other horses that I had the opportunity to work with. So I didn't have to do as much of that with him. He was more just a joy to ride, versus the other ones that were out here were more of a training process. But for me, I loved it because I loved horses and because I had my guide dogs, right? And I didn't have a guide dog anymore. My last guide dog died in 2012. And so I missed having a animal companion, but I knew I wasn't ready for another guide dog, and I might never be. We'll talk about that at some point in a future video. In fact, I think we'll talk about that soon in a video, because I was just realizing that it's now June of 1995 was when I got on a plane and flew to California and trained with my very first guide dog, Genevieve. And so it's now been officially 30 years. I'm like, what? How did that happen? How has it been 30 years since I trained with my first guide dog, since I met my first guide dog? So those are special days for me to relive, right? The 30th anniversary of me going down there to get on the plane and to meet her. Those were in June of 1995. And so I'm sure we'll talk about those days. They're coming up. And I want to share them with you all because I want to use my channel to talk about yarn, right? Because yarn and knitting and crocheting are my hobbies, right? I say that all the time. It's my hobbies, and I watch a lot of yarn channels on YouTube. I love to talk yarn with people. I like to listen to other people's, you know, yarn shows, what they're doing. I like to listen to their vlogs, their life stuff. So if you haven't figured out yet, my channel is about yarn, right? It's about knitting, it's about crocheting, but it's also kind of a vlog too, right? It's one of these sort of like diary type videos. So, excuse me. So it is just going to be about my life too. So hopefully I can be your little internet friend out there, right? So I want to talk more about my guide dogs because I feel like a lot of people don't know about guide dogs. So I'll probably use this month as an opportunity to talk about the beginnings of my guide dog journey with you, right? I think it'd be fun to share that with the world and help people understand a little bit more of that process. So, but I was really missing having a guide dog, and I had a lot of experience with working with animals because my dogs developed different fears and different issues that they had to work with, different traumas and things that happened to them while they were working. You know, I tried very hard to keep my dogs working and work through any kind of traumas or fears or negative experiences that they had. So I had a lot of experience with that kind of a thing. And so it really wasn't like anything really different for me to do that with horses, right? To say, okay, my dog, one of my guide dogs, my second guide dog, Albie, was shocked by the Max train in Portland. I lived in Portland. I took the Max trains and he was shocked. Those are electrical trains. They're ground level, like 3 times by the trains. And we really thought, you know, he was going to have to retire from that. So I had the trainer come out more than once, and she talked with me about techniques and what to do and how to work with him through. And we got him through it. We absolutely did, so that he wasn't afraid anymore. And that dog, my second dog, had a lot of like fears and, you know, kind of things that were very scary to him. He was a real timid soul. So he was a big German Shepherd, but he was a timid soul, okay? So I had a lot of experience working with animals through fears, sort of phobias and counter conditioning, right? Getting them over things that they were afraid of. And so, you know, working with horses, one of the horses that we had out here was clearly abused, right? Had been abused by somebody at some point. He had a rescue horse. And so, you know, a lot of the work with him was counter conditioning and fear, you know, and getting him used to things slowly, right? Getting him untraumatized slowly, you know, getting him acclimated to different stimuli and different things. And so it was really easy for me to, you know, transfer the stuff that I'd done with my dogs to my work with the horses. Plus, if you don't know yet, if you've somehow missed it, my job at the counseling center was a psychologist. I went to 10 years of college to be a psychologist. And so, you know, part of my job was behavioral stuff, right? I mean, it was. And so, yes, I liked doing traditional sort of talk therapy with people. But the reality is that sometimes people come to you simply for behavioral things. They want to change a behavior, or they want to get over a fear or a phobia. They want to deal with their anxiety or their panic, those kinds of things. And so, you know, the reality is that a lot of the sort of behavioral principles and behavioral concepts and ideas and things that I would do with clients were also, you know, in some ways were things that I could do with the horses that I had out here. So I really felt like I had between my undergraduate and my graduate work and my work with my clients and my work with my dogs, it all felt like it really worked out well for me to have, you know, horses that needed exposure work and needed counter conditioning work. It was like I could put all the pieces of my life, you know, sort of came together. Plus, you know, as much as I loved my work, and I did love my work, I loved my clients, I loved seeing my clients, I loved working with my clients. You know, you still need something outside of that. As a therapist, your own self-care is really important so that you don't get overwhelmed with things. And so having the horses for me was just like it was like my own sort of therapeutic outlet. I mean, yes, you know, I think knitting and crochet are therapeutic. Absolutely, I do. I think there's therapeutic benefits of it. I think there's calming benefits of it. We can talk about that in other videos, right? So I wasn't even crocheting then. I was just knitting then. So yes, I had my knitting, but the horses were like another sort of outlet for me, right? They were like a place for me to go to completely step away from my work. Even if it was like, okay, you know, I'm gonna get off work and get to the gym by 5, work out till 6:30, you know, go home, cook dinner, have dinner till 7:30, you know, and then, you know, maybe come out here for like an hour or something. You know, even if my time with them was just, you know, water and food, getting them a bucket of oats and grain and, you know, brushing them and giving them some hay, even if that, you know, was all I was doing, it just felt, it felt so good to me. It really did. Just to be completely not focused on my clients, you know, not that I didn't love them and not that I didn't put my heart and soul into them when I worked with them, but it's really important to be able to step away from your clients and their problems so that you don't burn out as a therapist. And that's important for a lot of careers, right? It doesn't matter what your career is. There's a lot of high stress careers, nursing, law enforcement. There's all kinds of careers in this world that are high stress. And so I encourage you, no matter what you're doing, you can enjoy your job like I did, and you still, you can love your job. And it's still really important for you, I mean, maybe your job has absolutely no stress. And if it does, that's excellent. Let me know what your job is that has no stress at all. But it's just important for us to have things that I think that are separate from work, that are enjoyable for us. And so, for me, my horses at that time, but see, I call them my horses, even though they weren't my horses. They were like my own. Yes, I had my knitting, but they were my own. And I would bring my knitting outside, by the way. Like, I would just, on the weekend, I would just go sit outside in the pasture sometimes. Like, I'd come out here all day. So I'd brush them and groom them and, do some work with them. But even when I wasn't doing that, I just wanted to hang out with them, okay? So I would, take a blanket, and probably most people would have, at least had a chair or something, but that's not really me. So I would just take a blanket and go lay out in the pasture and get my tan if it was summertime, and just listen to an audiobook and have my knitting, right? And just sit out, and then, like I am here, like here I am sitting in the middle of this bed with you, right? Hanging out, knitting with you, talking with you. This is what I would do with my horses. I would just put a blanket out on the ground, out in the pasture somewhere, and then put my books on, an audiobook sometimes. Sometimes not. Sometimes just enjoying, the horses, and bring my knitting out there and work on my knitting projects sometimes. So and they would come around. They would graze on the grass, and then they'd come over to the blanket and check me out and say hello and do their horsey thing. And then, they were focused on grazing. So, because that's what horses do, right? So that they would move on. But that was, that was my own therapeutic outlets. When I worked were horses and knitting and working out at the gym. So let me know if you're still working. Like, what are your therapeutic outlets? If you're on my channel, are you a crafter? Like, knitting and crocheting your only outlet, or do you have other outlets? Are you able to work out at the gym? Do you have other animals on your property, pets, any of that? That is also your therapy. So, there are times in my life when I could juggle all of those things. I could juggle work and horses and knitting and time at the gym. I could do all the things in life, right? But now it's, mostly knitting and crochet. So that's, that's where I got, so that's like the love of my horses. That's how deep the love of my horses is, okay? So if you think that somebody, and if you don't understand horse racing, it's okay. But I don't want people to think that it's all about cruelty. I don't ever want to see horses abused, ever. And if we ever see signs of that in racing, I think those situations need to be dealt with swiftly, right? But I believe that the majority, just like we saw with sovereignties, owners, and trainers saying, no, he's going to rest. I think that the majority of the people there who put their heart and their soul and their money and their investment, they invest their time and their money into those horses. I believe that most of them truly love those animals in the way that I did. And so I understand the bond that people have with horses. And if you've never had them, that's totally okay. Maybe you've never had the opportunity. Maybe you're afraid of them. Maybe you're, just like whatever. But I have a deep, deep bond with horses, a love and a passion for them. So for me, it's just incredible. I know what goes into training horses because I trained horses. I spent my time out here training horses. And I know what it takes to work, with a horse that comes with, severe trauma to train. We had a horse out here that was less than a year old when she came out here. And so You know, I went through the whole, excuse me, I'm talking a lot today. I'll probably go in just a little bit because I've been talking for a while, right? So if you're still here, thanks for listening. But just watching the horses this weekend at the racetrack really brought it back to me. It was like, oh my goodness, I miss that. Like I miss, you know, being around them. I miss just being around horses. I miss the smell of horses. You know, there's just a smell to horses. I just would bury my face in my horses and just, you know, the smell of them, and then plus the leather and the saddle and the creak of the leather. Like, to me, it's about the full sensory experience. As somebody who's visually impaired, I love, you know, horses are full sensory. So it's like, I love the sounds that they make. I love the sounds of their hooves and the clip clop, but I love the sound of the trotting, and I love the sounds of, you know, hearing them. Even out here on the dirt, like just hearing them come galloping around was cool. And they galloped to where you could, you know, like hear them even on the dirt. And so it's the sounds, it's the smell of the horses, plus the smell of the leather and the creaking sounds of the saddle and the feel of their coats. I just love to brush them and run my fingers through their coats and their manes, their tails, and so they are just like a full experience for me. And so for me to watch that race just gets me in touch with how passionate I am about horses. It gets me just really in touch with my deep love and connection for the animals. So I just want to reassure anybody who thinks that I'm watching it purely for 120 seconds of entertainment. That's definitely not true. Are there some people who are just there for the entertainment? Probably. Are there some people who are just there for the betting and the excitement and all that? And that's great, right? Horse racing is an industry, and you know, you can talk about the ethics of building an industry off an animal. But those horses love to run, and I think that as long as, you know, there's checks in place, as long as there's vets in place, there's vets on site, you know, that have the authority to drop a horse at any moment and be like, yeah, no, this horse isn't running today. There's an issue with whatever. I think as long as those checks are in place in the system, as somebody who truly has a deep love and passion of horses, as somebody who's seen them in action, who knows the hours, right? The hours and hours and hours that you put in just to making a horse, you know, rideable, that goes into training. I feel like the majority of people do it because they are passionate about it. I mean, are there some that are just in it for the millions? I'm sure that there are. I'm sure that there are some people who are just in it for the greed. But I think that you have to really be in it, you have to have a deep love. And even some of the people at the top, I mean, obviously there are, you know, very wealthy people who own these animals that maybe don't spend that much time in the barns. But even some of the best trainers out there today started out, you know, cleaning, shoveling horse poop, right? Most of the people, not all the wealthy owners, not all the billionaires that own horses did that, but the majority of the other people involved, the trainers and the jockeys, and, you know, they start out at the bottom. They start out working a shovel. They start out doing the not glamorous aspect of working with them because they love being around them. They just love hanging out in the barn, right? They just, what I talked about, that even on a Saturday, you know, I could have been doing a million other things with my Saturdays, and yes, I like to go to the gym and put in a long session, and, you know, I still did my Saturday things, right? My weekend things of, you know, going to the gym and doing my cardio and lifting and getting a good workout in and going to the grocery store, you know, and cooking food for my week and all that when I worked. But I also would just love to come out here and hang out in the grass and just hang out in the pasture with the horses, just to be around them. So yeah, so I understand the passion that the majority of the people who are involved in horse racing have for the animals. The majority of the people, not all, like I said. I'm sure there are some greedy people involved, but oh man, I hope my allergies don't last all summer like this. But I really understand the passion that most of the people have for the work in it. So that's kind of what I wanted to say, because I know sometimes in some circles, if people don't understand, if they've never been around horses and they've never been around the training aspect of it, there are people who worry, about cruelty. And like I said, cruelty definitely happens, and all of us who love the animals, we have to be, mindful of that and aware of that. Like I said, I work with an abused horse out here. And I'll talk more about that in another video. This has been pretty long. I realize that I'm just kind of rambling with y'all. This has been pretty long. Watching that race really reminded me of my own horses that I had out here, and how much joy that I got just being around them. Because I listened to some of the interviews. I didn't get to hear all of the race because my sister and I chatted during it, but I'm the kind of horse nerd that if I didn't have a phone call with my sister, which I took because, like I said, she worked hard, and when she has time on her weekend to chat, I want to definitely take advantage of that and have that conversation with her. That means more to me, right? A conversation with my sister means more to me than listening to them talk on TV, of course. But still, I'm the kind of person that does sit and watch, the whole 3 hours or 4 hours of the Kentucky Derby and the Belmont, and I listen to all the commentary, because I like to hear the stories, because there's a lot of amazing stories from the jockeys to the trainers to the owners. There's a lot of personal stories in there, and, success stories, and there's just people who talk about, I just wanted to be in the barn from when I was a small kid. You'll hear that over and over at racetracks of I was 10 when I first started working in the barn, or I would just wanted to be out there with my dad, and so that was me, always trying to find friends that had horses so I could just go and, pet their horse and hang out with them too. And so that was me out here. As well, it was I could have done a million things with my Saturday. I could have gone shopping at the mall. I could have, gone and did lunch with their friends. I could have volunteered. I could have done social groups. I could have gotten more involved with social clubs. There was a variety of things, right? Because I'd come from Portland, where I had a very, very busy life in Portland. Let's just say that. I haven't talked about that a lot on here. Maybe I will. But I had a very busy life when I lived in Portland, and I was involved in a lot of things. And so, when I came out here, it was very different from Portland, right? But I could have immersed myself in people and in groups and stuff like that, the way that I had done in the past. In Portland, I was very involved in the blind community and the disabled community, involved with a lot of groups, a lot of advocacy, and I'm grateful I did that. I got a ton of good experience, made a lot of friends, really believe that made a difference. But I was, partially really grieving from the loss of my guide dog, Rosie, and then, just wanting to embrace, I got the opportunity to be the closest I've ever been to having my own horses. And for me, it was that's what I want to do with my Saturday. I want to go lay on a blanket in the middle of a pasture and, just hang out with my horses. So that's what I did for a while before I moved out here. And that just, I just had all that on my mind this week. I know I talked way too long. I know. Sorry about that. Because you are just here for the yarn, right? You're like, you're not talking about yarn, and I'm just here for the yarn. So, hey, if you're not just here for the yarn, well, you know, I don't know. If you're just here for the yarn, so sorry to disappoint. Yeah. But that's just what was on my mind this week a lot was what watching that horse race reminded me of. Got me back in touch with how I ended up out here, right? How I ended up reconnecting with an old friend. So here is what I've been working on, y'all. I've been just sitting here knitting and stitching away while I've been chatting at you. Say hello again. Let me know what you've been doing while I've been just talking away about things that have nothing to do with yarn. Nothing to do with knitting, right? I'm just like blah, 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 blah. So thanks for listening. But you want to see the yarn lovers? I know you do, right? So let me know also what do you think this should be, right? Because I'm still, I'm getting to a point where I'm going to have to do some shaping on this, right? We're going to have to make a decision about what this garment is. Okay, we're gonna have to decide, what is this garment? Is it a tank top? Because if I make it a tank top, which is, that's where I initially was thinking, then I'm gonna need to try it on again. I might need to add more stitches, right? For the bust, I might need to get a little bit wider in the bust area. If I wear it as more like a tunic, where it's longer, then I might need to actually take stitches in for the waist and then flare it back out for the bust. And of course, if I use it as a skirt, I don't know, I probably don't need to take it in yet. So I will probably need to go now that I've talked about all things that don't have anything to do with yarn at all. Just talked about what was on my mind. Thanks for indulging me, right? I'm gonna have to go so that I can try on the mystery creation, try on the mystery garment that I don't even know if I'm gonna finish. At this point, I'm like, I got so many options, I don't even know if I want to finish it now. I'm just not sure. So I'm gonna try it on a variety of places on my body and make some decisions about its future, if it even has a future as a garment or not. That's not uncommon, by the way, for a designer. For somebody who designs their own projects, that's not uncommon. Okay, I'm just going to be real with you. We work and work and work on things, and then we just unknit and frog and rip them out. It happens. It does. So anyway, I'm gonna go for now, but yeah, I think I'm just gonna go, and I will turn on a light because I do believe that it's getting a little bit dark in here. So I'm gonna turn on a light so that you can see this. If you're a yarn lover and you're still here and you put up with a horse babble, thank you. Let me know if you've ever had horses before. Let me know if you understand what I'm talking about, okay? If you ever had the passion and the love of horses in the way that I'm describing, where you're like, I'm just gonna take a blanket and go lay in a pasture for several hours and knit, or listen to a book or whatever, let me know if you understand that, because I know not everybody does, but I also know that when you do, right, you get it, and you're super happy to connect with other people who also get that love and that passion, that have had that deep connection to a horse since they were children. Like I said, since I was like 2 or 3, the first time I got to meet a pony, it was like instant. It was like, oh yeah, I love these animals, right? It was just a deep soul connection for me. And it's been that way ever since then. So, okay, let me put the camera on pause, and I will turn on a light, and I'll let you see the project.
Pause. Pause. Okay, knitters, yarn lovers, here it is, right? We got, as I said, we got the crochet on the bottom, right? We got some double crochet, and then I did these little, half double crochet little loops in case I wanted to put like a tie in there, and then put it on some knitting needles, and then just started working it for a little bit. So I'm gonna try it on. It's nothing fancy at all. It's actually incredibly simple. So I'm gonna try this thing on and determine if I should continue to work on it or not, or if I should work on something else. Alrighty, my friends, thanks for listening to me babble. Okay, until next time, happy stitching.
Pause. Recording button.
In
Double
this
tap to activate.
video, I worked with you on a project that I am knitting onto some crochet, and at the end of the video I decided, because I was chatting and talking about my horses, I decided to add a couple of pictures. The first picture is of myself and Trigger, the little Palomino pony that was out here, and the second picture is of myself with Nobby, the beautiful brown and black and white paint quarter horse that I just loved. He was a show horse. If you're blind or visually impaired, I do have my white cane in the pictures with me, and also because I went ahead and put this video into the editing app, I did put my welcome to my channel screen at the beginning and my thank you for watching picture at the end, and in both of those pictures the letters for welcome to my channel and thank you for watching are spelled out in blue and red yarn. And of course, thank you for watching.
Pause.